Okay, we are back. We're actually going to do the notes for lesson 17. So what you can do is you can title your notes Algebra 1, Unit 2, Lesson 17. And I'm not going to draw my Cornell boxes in, but on your paper, draw in your Cornell boxes. That's the first thing I'm going to look for when you take your notes. And then all this information will go in the biggest area, and then you have to fill in your big ideas and your summary below. So I would start by sketching this graph. It's just an XY axis, and a couple things are pointed at it, which should help you. The x-axis, these are different components of your graph. Your x-axis, which we are going to be working on graphing tomorrow or the next day, next time you see me, your x-axis contains your independent variable. Independent variable. Variable. Which means it's your time or it's your, it depends on the information that you know. If you know there's 4 cans of blue paint, then your blue paint would be your independent variable. If it would depend on how much red paint, that would mean your other variable. So your x-axis, which is this one here, I will highlight it in green. This is your x-axis here. Okay, your y-axis is your dependent variable. And this changes based on what did you put in for your x-axis. So if you plugged in 50 in your x-axis, what did it give you over here? And that would mean that this part is your dependent axis or your y-axis. This one is the y-axis. Okay, your coordinate point, say for example, we are plugging in the point 50, 100. So your coordinate point for A, whoops, yeah, go ahead and open that. A, which is this purple dot, is 50, 100. So this is your x value and your y value is second. So how you do this is you read your x value 50 and you go along here as your 50 and then you go up on your y-axis to however many it says in your y spot, which is 100. So you would go over 50 up 100. That's how you would plot that point. You could label it A is equal to 50, 100, and then on your graph you can even label it 50, 100. That's a coordinate point. The other word for this is ordered pair. So it's also called an ordered pair. And I will be using the two phrases interchangeably. So I'll either say it's your ordered pair, and pair means 2, so there are 2 numbers, or your coordinate point. If we're plotting on a graph, I call it a point. If it's just 2 numbers that go together, I'll usually call it an ordered pair. So maybe for your big ideas section that is on the right side of your page, you can title this Components of Graphs. That's the big idea. Scale. For the x-axis, your scale, this is kind of like the scale you step on to weigh yourself, but it mainly is a scale to measure things, just like you step on that thing, the scale to measure something. But this scale means on your x-axis, what are the intervals? What are the intervals of those little tick marks? Sometimes we have to fill in our own tick marks. They're not given. And then you have to fill it in at a certain interval, and that's your scale. So your x interval is in intervals, or your x-axis is in intervals, in this case, of 50 in this graph. And then your y-axis is also in intervals of 50. It is not always in intervals of 50. Sometimes it's in intervals of 1, sometimes it's by 100, 150. Just the point is the scale, the distance between here to here, if that's 50, then the distance to the next point is also 50. So it's a scale because each marker is the same distance apart. So that's what the scale means. It means that they are the same distance. Each tick mark is the same amount of units apart. In this case, it's 50. Sometimes maybe I'll make a scale like 25 here. And that's okay because on the y-axis, they all have the same distance between each tick mark. It doesn't have to be the same. If the x-axis is going up by 25, if the y-axis is going up by 25, it doesn't mean that the x-axis has to go up by 25, but every interval on each axis has to be the same distance apart. Let's try it out where we are going to take an example from the problem set from class. And this is from lesson 16. And I forget which number this was, but this is from lesson 16. And what we have to do is create, your instructions are to create an equation from the table. Then we're going to then plot the ordered pairs. Now, the ordered pairs, all of these are going to be your x values, and all of these are going to be your y values. These here, oh, I should not do that. All these are going to be your y values here, and your x values are all going to be these. Okay, so your ordered pair is going to be 20, 10, 40, 20, 60, 30, 80, 40. That's how I think of each of these as ordered pairs. They're going to become coordinate points. Okay, let's create an equation. So let's call ACLED homework X and algebra homework Y. So if we want to know how many algebra minutes it's going to take for homework, we know that you take the amount of ACLED homework, and in this case, you divide it by 2. Divide it by 2. 20 divided by 2 is 10. 40 divided by 2 is 20. 60 divided by 2 is 30. 80 divided by 2 is 40. So whatever the amount of ACLED minutes are, you're going to divide that by 2 to get Algebra 1 homework. Algebra 1 homework minutes, ACLED homework minutes. Okay, so that is one equation. Now what we're going to do is we are going to graph, then plot the ordered pairs. This means we're going to graph it. So we're going to talk about scaling, we're going to talk about coordinate points, et cetera, et cetera. So first of all, let's draw out our x and y graph. Sometimes it looks like this. More commonly, your x and y graphs are going to look like this. But because we're going to work in this quadrant or this section of the graph, I'm just going to zoom in to this section. This is called the origin. The points for here is 0, 0, and it is origin. And if you've ever heard that word before, it means the beginning. So the beginning of our graph is right here. This is, I think, the only point on your whole coordinate plane that has a special name for it. It's called the origin. Okay, so we're going to start plotting 20, 10, 40, 20. But now I have to wonder, I have to scale my x-axis. So here are my numbers. In my x-axis, this is my x. I like to label my axes x and y, so I know this is good practice. I have 20, 40, 60, and 80. So I think my scale should go in 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80. I'll even do 100 here. Because between each tick mark, it's 20. And I spaced it out so it took up the whole graph so that it looks good. This is how you scale it. So I'm also going to do the same thing, where if, say this is my highest value of y, 40, well, in between here, what I'm doing is I'm spacing out evenly. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'll call this 10, 20, 30, and 40. They're not spaced evenly. Like this little spot takes up 20 units and this spot takes up 10. But I can do that on my scale for y. I can choose my scale. So I'm going to, all these, I'm going to rewrite the coordinate points 20, 10, 40, 20, 60, 30, and then 80, 40. And I'm going to plot these now. So my x-axis is 20, then I'm going to plot 10, then I'm going to plot 20, 40 and 20, 60 and 30, and then 80 and 40. So what we're starting to see here is actually a line that goes this way, which is really important. But for now, plotting the points is just fine. I'm actually going to label these 20, 10, 40, 20, 60, 30, and 80, 40. I don't think these lined up that well. That's okay. Okay, so tomorrow in class or the next time I see you, things that you're gonna need to know. You're gonna need to know that these are coordinate points, and we can go over scaling some more, but we're going to be plotting things on graphs, so come prepared. Write your summary, and then press the last button on Edpuzzle, and then you're done. Bye.